you're ready.
Hello, welcome back to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl. I'm Dr. Cheryl, and we have a returning guest tonight, Steve Bhaerman and Swami Beyondananda, if I can spell it right. Welcome, Steve.
Good. Well, thank
you.
you. Well, we all go through bad spells. And Beyondananda, since he's one of the biggest names in comedy, we want to make sure all 12 letters appear.
I will from now
Yeah,
on.
that's okay.
It's already in my head.
It's tricky. Good to be here.
Yes.
Good to be here.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
And, bring us up to date with what you've been doing in the last, because it's been probably 3 years or so. I'm sure you can do a speedy recap.
A speedy recap. Well, I think mainly what I'm doing right now, in addition to traveling and performing comedy as a Swami, we just did a 6-week tour of the Midwest, starting in Iowa. And apparently there's a ceremony that they do in Iowa that puts you into ordinary reality. You drink this stuff called ayahuasca. And yeah, it's made out of corn.
Ooh,
but it's hardcore corn. Hardcore corn, yes. So anyway, so we did a wonderful tour in the Midwest, Michigan and Iowa, and then we went to Colorado. And I think people definitely want and need to be uplifted when gravity seems to be pulling them down. So I've been doing that. And then for the last, since November, I've had a weekly radio show called Wiki Politiki.
Yes.
WIKIPOLITIKI, Wiki Politiki. And it's designed to bring left and right, front and center, to face the music and dance together, to turn the funk into function and leave the junk at the junction.
Yes, amen.
And we want to bring on solutionaries, people who really have breakthrough ideas that can really help us overgrow the current new word, situation.
Yes.
The situation.
Yes.
And we have a deeply united body politic in that most people recognize that what we have hasn't been working. They have different ideas as to what to do about that. But definitely we're at that point where in evolution, where there's this crisis point that if we're fortunate, will precipitate an evolution.
I just want to share one thing. Last week, speaking of Iowa, I was in the city, and all of a sudden I saw 25 naked men. It was Pride Week last weekend.
Oh, okay.
And they were riding their bikes
on
the side of the road, and they were all tan.
They were all tan all over.
All tan all over.
So you're going off on a tangent, aren't you?
That's right.
Yeah, you went off on a tangent in this conversation.
But I had a couple in my car from Iowa. The expression on their face, it was hilarious. Anyway.
Well, did you get off on a tangent then, or not?
I had a good laugh, that's for sure. That was my tangent.
That's good. Well, they were with their pride and their joy, so that's good.
Absolutely. Anyway.
But you had people from Iowa, and so
yes,
you exposed them to people who are already exposing themselves, so that's good.
They need it. Well, wake up! Wake up!
Welcome to the city. So yeah, so anyway, that's mainly what I've been doing, and finding people who have something to share to enlighten us, brighten us, and point us in the direction of where evolution wants to take us if we're willing to go.
Well, going with that, what we need, and I deal with the public every day, is more love, unconditional love. And we need to look at the relationship with money, because it's way off with what's going on in this country. So
we just had, yesterday, I interviewed somebody, Joel Solomon, who wrote a book called Clean Money. And, we all know about filthy lucre. This is clean money. And what is clean money? Clean money is money that is being used to restore, that's being used to look back 7 generations and forward 7 generations and create something that's self-sustaining. Several years ago, I wrote a book with Bruce Lipton, cellular biologist, called Spontaneous Evolution. And we talked about, it was right at the time when the 2008 financial crash was happening as we were writing this book. And so we asked the question, what is a real economy? What is a real economy? Because so much of what we have is this casino economy where we call it survival of the fattest. You know, the people
Boy, oh
already have way
boy,
too
oh
much.
boy.
You know,
Well, in the media, they feed into the addiction. It's addictive, buying and honing in
and holding forth. You know, it's interesting that over the last 30 or 40 years, the phenomenon of casinos, it used to be confined to Nevada, and it was illegal every place else. And all of a sudden, we have all of these casinos. And so we were just in Las Vegas at the last leg of our tour. And it's
Sin
so,
City.
what?
Sin City.
Oh, but it's for families now.
Oh,
So
yeah,
everybody
right.
can sin together.
Right.
But really, it's the idea that as the gap between rich and poor has gotten greater and greater and greater,
The disparity.
they're holding out this hope. We call it hopium. Holding out this hope that you can win big at the casino, and you can be just like everybody else. You can be just like the people you see on TV. And so we've been getting further and further and further away from that vibration of love, which, remember we used to sing the best things in life for free if you have money. So things have really changed about that. Yeah. And I think it's kind of like the proverbial frog in the boiling water. If it happens over a long period of time, you don't really notice it. But I'm sure there's people out there who remember when they had leisure time to volunteer, to work, do volunteer work, and there was spacious time. And now all of a sudden, people need 3 jobs in order to survive.
And the disparity in San Francisco is just really sad.
And there's a lot of despair in that disparity.
Yes. Oh.
Because you have people who are young people being paid gazillions of dollars in the Silicon Valley industry, and then everybody else.
That's what's actually kind of triggering the disparity, and a lot of them are millennials.
Yeah.
And they don't have the practical knowledge to be able to be practical with their money. So they're paying 60-70% of their income to rent. It's like, how can you survive? How can you
Well, they don't expect you're really going to have a life. You're working 70 hours a week,
if not more,
for something else. Yeah. And again, it's kind of like 40 or 50 years ago when young people all of a sudden became famous as athletes or band members and so on, and all of a sudden you have this obscene amount of money to spend, and not necessarily the maturity, although some people have the maturity, but not necessarily. Sure, yeah. Right. And so if you grow up and you don't have any countervailing values to balance out the power of money, and I think that's really, if you're looking at that love and money thing, I think that in this so-called civilization, for a long time, there's been an absence of the sacred in the middle.
Oh, totally.
And, when science and religion got their divorce, and religion got custody of the, ethereal, and science got custody of the material, it's no wonder that, people who are, traditional religious people are just totally shocked and blown away by the level of materialism and the level of
lack of respect,
lack of respect, and so on. So I think that part of the very complex political situation that we have is there's been a reaction against Hollywood. If Hollywood people say something, the people over on the Trump side will go, we don't believe that because they're just Hollywood elites. So the cachet that, let's say, somebody like Oprah had 10 years ago doesn't really exist in terms of the masses, because so many people have changed teams, and on that team, given what they're told, they shouldn't believe those people in mainstream media.
Have you seen what Robert De Niro said?
I can only imagine what Robert De Niro said. I can only imagine what Robert De Niro said.
They had to bleep it.
Well, the thing is that it's understandable, because um, you know, people are, it's an interesting trance that's been created in this country over the past 30 or 40 years. And it started with Fox News, actually started before that. It started with Lewis Powell, who later became a Supreme Court justice, but he was one of the people after the Nixon um, Watergate scandal and so on, one of the people who helped to rebuild the conservative movement. And they did this in a very, very concerted way. And they did it with lots of money and lots of understanding about how people make their decisions on an irrational basis. Mm. And so they've had their brainwash and mind fog machine going full tilt. Rush Limbaugh, Fox News, and so on. And then people actually, if it matches what they already believe, people will believe it. Meanwhile, back in the jungle, over on the progressive side, there's been a lack of willingness. My joke, that's not that funny. I wrote an article some years ago about Fox News called "Come on, baby, fight my liar." and what I pointed out was that 70% of what they said was not true. So I said that conservatives obviously like being lied to, whereas progressives prefer lying to themselves. And what I meant by that is that progressives have really, really ignored what they've been up against. They've ignored they've chosen, I call it Nazism, when people choose to not see what's too uncomfortable to look at. So people on that side have chosen to not see that the elections in 2000 and 2004 were pretty much stolen by hacked voting machines. You could read Mark Crispin Miller's book, Fooled Again, talks about that. They've chosen to not see that Martin Luther King was assassinated by the FBI. There was a Supreme Court case, there was a court case in Memphis in 1999 where William Pepper, the attorney for the King family, proved in a civil suit, court of law, that it was a conspiracy of the FBI and local police and so on. CIA was involved as well. And James Earl Ray was just a patsy that was set up. The Washington Post did an article about this. Not many people know that. For the 50th anniversary of the assassination this year, Washington Post did an article where they interviewed members of the King family. They also interviewed Bill Pepper extensively about his work and essentially said that the King family believes, and this guy has shown, that our government was involved in the King assassination. So here it is, Washington Post. Yeah. Does any other publication pick it up? None of the progressive publications picked it up. It's all bought and sold anyway.
And Kennedy.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah. So because of these perpetrations, we have been in a state of post-traumatic stress, and all of that it messes with our perceptions and it messes with our ability to think and to be courageous.
So, how are you, me, and whoever else is talking out there to get this out? How are we really going to change this?
Well, you know,
in your perspective.
In my perspective, what we need to recognize is that rather than impeach Trump, we need to impeach the entire impeachable system. Meaning that we have a system where we have, in fact, these two researchers at Harvard Business School called it the political industrial complex. And the political industrial complex are all of those forces that benefit from things being the way they are. All of these political pundits, all of the pollsters, all of these people who've built an industry based on a politics of polarization. And each of the political parties they use the wedge issues to create fear and anger in their people. It's not
division and sheeple.
It's divide and conquer. Yep. It's divide and conquer. Yep. You know, so
we need love, 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 love.
Well, right now, I mean, the heartening things that are happening, the heartening things,
Yes.
is that there's the beginnings of really an ecumenical movement in this country to help us move past both religion and non-religion to an agreed upon sense of the sacred. There's an organization called Living Room Conversations. Joan Blades, who was one of the founders of MoveOn.org, which was, obviously a progressive platform.
Right.
Having worked with Joseph McCormick, who was a conservative pioneer in transpartisan dialogue and activity, she created something called the Living Room Conversations. And what it is, it's a way for people to rehumanize one another. Rehumanize, because polarization is dehumanizing.
Yes.
Polarization creates mortal enemies out of people on the other side. And so what this Living Room Conversations does is it brings people together in living rooms. And first, there's a lot of work for people to listen to one another's stories. Now, it doesn't, we're not trying to pretend that people agree, but what happens is by listening, people soften their positions and their perspectives. And there's a greater likelihood of coming together around constructive solutions rather than defending positions, which is what we have now. So what we require is what my friend Richard Lang calls, he wrote a new book called Virtual Country, and what he calls an ecosystem for citizen engagement.
Ego or eco?
We got plenty of the ego. The ecosystem, we got that running. Woo! But this is an ecosystem, meaning that in contrast to what we have now, which is a governing system where the people have been disenfranchised, and everybody knows they've been disenfranchised. What if there were an independent institution called the National Town Square that was not corporate, that was not run by the government, that was not run by the mainstream media, where every individual had a verifiable voice and vote? Right. So that that vote would be counted. Now, it would be a vote on issue. And what happens when you vote on an issue is you start to recognize that even though people have been polarized into these two political parties, it turns out that 70 or 80 or 90% of people agree on this. But because of the polarization, they've not been able to get that. So when you start to see 70 million people say, we want legalized marijuana or legalized agricultural industrial hemp, we want money out of politics, we want to change the rules of the elections so that the minority parties have a chance. All of a sudden, you see 70 million of us want that, and then we have leverage over the elected officials. In fact, it doesn't even matter who gets elected, because they won't get elected the next time.
So how are we going to do that?
Well, right now, the National Town Square is looking for funding. We're in the process of speaking with possible convening organizations, larger national organizations, and university institutes that are not identified with either of the political parties. Unlike so many other platforms that involve your identity, your information won't be sold or used in any commercial way. You're totally anonymous, and yet you're as verifiable as when you use your bank card. So once people realize, and particularly young people, go, oh, I can vote this way, you can change your vote on specific issues. Then what happens is you have the ability to vote the best ideas up the pop chart. So instead of what we have right now, which is where the very, the people who fund the election process, the people who have the money, will simply present their legislators with, here's the legislation we want, and then we call that robber stamp, the robbers get stamped and so on, the robber stamp, and that's what we have. Well, what if it were a little bit different? What if we the people presented the people's platform? Because there's not that much disagreement about the fundamental issues.
Mm,
There's disagreement about abortion. There's disagreement
right.
about those kinds of
The
things.
moral.
But in terms of what do we want our government to tell us, truth or lies, most people don't want to be involved in these foreign wars. They don't want to. Conservatives don't want to be involved in these wars of empire. And the reason why many people voted for Donald Trump was because they thought, mistakenly, I believe, that he would dismantle the deep state. That somehow this rogue, we have a what would be? He'd be an outlaw in a criminal system. These people
You
see that
know,
our current system is criminal, and I agree.
I can't. I don't think that Trump won legitimately by the votes. He was stolen. It was stolen. I mean, they've
Of course it
proven
was.
it was proven it's been hacked.
But see, this is why the Democrats are completely and utterly useless because I'll be blunt. The Republicans they've been playing hardball. Democrats have been playing hardly have balls. That's as blunt as I can be.
Boy.
But that's really, unfortunately, why the Democrats continue to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, because they have not allowed themselves to cultivate the courage to stand up and say what's true, that those other people are sociopaths. And it's a sociopathic system that's designed to extract and exploit. And they've gone along with the system.
And psychopathic.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, we can talk about
narcissistic, psychopath, on and on and on.
Whatever those, yeah. And I'm sure that a lot of people take exception to calling Donald Trump a narcissist because it slanders narcissists.
Well, too bad.
Yeah.
Well, we have about 6 minutes left.
Oh, good. So
Steve.
Ask me something.
Well, how are we really going to embrace love and getting it out there? Besides just, I mean, I talk about it, unconditional love every day. At least I try to.
It's really paradoxical because in order to really bring it out, the shadow has to be revealed. The shadow has to be dealt with.
Isn't that why Trump's in office? Is to bring up all this? It's coming. I mean, things are happening every day that are really devastating.
Well, I think as long as I don't think people realize that. I think that
you mean to tell me that the majority of the people are just sleepwalking?
I think that people,
and not awake?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that people, because of the perpetrations, like the assassinations, like the Kennedy assassinations, King assassinations, 9/11, and various other things, we have PTSD, and we have not been functioning like a rational body politic. You're familiar with Edward Bernays, right? Edward Bernays was Freud's nephew, who is the father of modern public relations. He wrote a book called Propaganda. So he's been very influential, even though he's not very well known. And I would say that most of the news that we get has been slathered with Bernays sauce because it's been spun. And there's no place to go to get unspun news where the majority of the people recognize, whatever side they're on, that's real news. The bad guys have done such a good job of using the fact that the New York Times hasn't told the truth about everything to slander the whole thing as fake news so that they could put their even more toxic lies into the space.
It's pathetic.
Yeah.
It's totally pathetic.
And so this is where we're at. So in order to hold the love, this is really, really important because it really comes down to each individual being able to metabolize this and still hold that truth.
Yeah.
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 And so that's why community, even though it's individuals, community is so important.
Yeah. It starts individually, actually.
Yeah.
It really does.
It has
The
to.
love within yourself and how you love your family, your friends, and community. But you got to love yourself first.
Here's a story. I'm going to end this segment with a story.
Okay.
And this is something that happened to Patricia Sun. Maybe you know her. She's a really wonderful spiritual psychologist. About 20 years ago, she was doing a presentation at a New Age bookstore. And as she arrived, there's 4 fundamentalist Christians picketing the New Age bookstore out there. She says, I'm going to go talk with those people. The bookstore owner says, you can't talk with those people. But she says, I'm going to try. Off she goes. About 15 minutes later, 3 of them hug her, put down their signs, and say, you're saying just what Jesus said.
Yeah.
And the 4th one continues holding their sign. So when I hear stories like that, it reinforces my idea that 3/4 of us are susceptible to love and respect and being listened to. The value of this living room conversation platform, that doesn't seem like much, but it's huge. It rehumanizes the other.
Mm.
And believe me, progressives have done the same thing to Trump supporters. I mean, okay, so De Niro said what he said. Oh, well, or so they didn't let Sarah Huckabee Sanders eat at the Red Hen. You know, it's basically when you push against something like that, that's why resist not evil, because when you resist it, you give it energy, you energize it, you talk about it, you make it real, you make it bigger.
Like Mother Teresa said, you don't go to an anti-war rally, you go to a peace rally.
So maybe we need a week without Trump, where nobody talks about him.
Yeah.
On the news, they don't use his name. They just leave it blank.
Yep. Oh, that would be wonderful. Then
today.
It would give room in everybody's brain.
No pictures of Trump. None whatsoever.
Yeah.
Not even a pic, nothing. And I think that
he needs more love than anybody on that right now. Well, not anybody, but oh boy. Anyway.
Yeah.
So.
So I like that story, the Patricia Sun story, because it indicates to me, and it's been my experience, that most people who are not sociopaths, who are not psychopaths, are susceptible to being listened to, being respected. If you want to talk about the deplorables, these were people who were disrespected, made fun of. I mean, imagine.
It never healed that.
Imagine, you grew up in a society where boys were boys and girls were girls, and a marriage was between a boy and a girl. All of a sudden, you have all of this other stuff happening. How did that happen? What planet did I land on? And that's where these people are. It's like, we want our planet back. We want our society back. That's not how I grew up. That's not how I want it. And so the idea that now somebody can wear a Trump hat and insult people boldly, you're looking at that wound of somebody who had to keep it in and already is misplacing their aggression. That's how it's intended. You want to get somebody who's going to kick somebody who's lower on the totem pole.
So let's leave with Steve.
Yeah.
Saying wonderful words of wisdom around love.
Okay, wonderful words of wisdom around love. I wrote a wonderful book with Leonard Laskow called Forgiving Love. Leonard is a brilliant MD and has used the forgiveness process. And his first book was called Healing with Love. And he says that love is what holds the universe together. That's what holds the universe together. It's more than a sentimental emotion. It's that coherence that holds everything. And that's what we have demonstrated for us is what happens when there's an absence of love. And so the reminder is that everything is either, as the Course in Miracles said, Everything is either love or a call for love. So when we see these things, it's a call for love. Now, if somebody has a gun in their hand, we want to disarm that individual.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And and he may die in the process of being disarmed. However, understanding that that's a call for love. You can't do that, by the way. We won't let you shoot anybody, but we recognize that that's a call for love.
Absolutely.
And it's everywhere.
Absolutely. Amen. And thank you.
Okay.
Swami's coming back.
Oh, Swami's coming. Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
So now we saw the guy behind the curtain.
Yeah, that was the man behind the curtain. I got.
Okay, Cheryl, once again, when you see the light come on camera forward, go ahead and give it a go.
Zippity doo-dah.
You got it. Okay.
Zippity doo-dah, we are back with Swami Beyondananda.
Oh, well, it's great to be here.
And next time I'll spell it right.
Oh, no. We all go through a bad spell from time to time, so that's good. That's very, very good. And it's wonderful to be here with you.
Thank you. Yes,
Yes.
and it's wonderful to have you here for the second time.
Oh, yes. Well, I've been traveling all over the place.
Yes.
People ask me, is global warming, is it real? Is it real? I just got back from a fabulous vacation in the future. I spent it at Tropicana.
Tropicana.
Oh, yes,
Oh,
yeah.
which part was that?
Well, it was warm, I'll tell you that.
Oh.
Very warm. Yes. So, yes, plenty to talk about. You have questions, I have answers.
Okay, well, let's talk about, since my show is about unconditional love.
Oh, listen, I tell you people out there, if you buy my products, I promise to love you unconditionally.
And what kind of products are they?
I have books, I have CDs. Don't Squeeze the Shaman, that's one of them.
Don't squeeze the shot.
Beyondananda and Beyond, Supreme Court Jester.
Ooh,
Yes,
yes,
all kinds of
Yes.
stuff like that. Drive your
Okay.
karma, curb your dogma.
okay.
Yeah.
And how's little Bullwinkle doing?
Well, you see, I wear this. This is my power animal and spirit guide. I'll tell you why. Because no matter what your problem is, if you channel Bullwinkle to tell people your problems, it sounds funny.
It
So,
goes away.
It
too?
sounds funnier. No, it just sounds funnier.
Just
So
sounds
let's
funny.
say you lost your job, you have no money. Channel Bullwinkle. I just lost my job and I have no money.
Okay.
Little funnier. And this
What
is
if
my.
you lost your love?
Oh well, then
What is
Bullwinkle
Bullwinkle?
would not be as happy. Okay. No, I think it's important to put things in perspective.
Yes.
Perspective.
Yes.
Love is something that is right at the top. Right at the top. If it's good enough for Jesus, Buddha, and the Beatles, it's good enough for me.
Beatles. Did you see Paul McCartney's thing?
I'm waiting to watch that
Okay.
for when I have the time to actually sit and be with it.
Yes.
I know I'm going to love it.
I know. I'm actually. I only saw this a little, in that because I haven't had time either.
Yeah,
But
well,
I
that's
wanna
what
see
I
it.
saw, and I want to see the whole thing.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So, what do you think, Swami? How are we going to fix the world situation with money?
Well, if we have enough money, we probably could do it.
Wow.
I have no problem with money. Without money, I still have problems. But I think that that is the contradiction. Now, what is money? Money is energy. It is
Yes.
just energy.
Yes, it is.
So-
Exchange.
So the question is, what is it that we want to put energy into? What is it that we want to build?
Love.
Well, love is everything. Everything is love. Love is either love or absence of love. Love is everything. And so when we take that love, what do we want to create with it? What is our work of heart? That which we want to do, our work of heart.
Right.
That is
It's
actually,
your purpose and passion.
Yeah.
When you listen to your heart,
that's right.
then you can create your passion and your purpose. Or you have to have the passion to create whatever is right, like you're Swami.
Well,
Steve and Swami.
Well, I'm Swami right now. But no, I think it's important that we understand that part of what allows us to have this passion is as children to be treated as if the world is a place of big possibilities.
Absolutely.
Every child is a genius.
Yes.
But as Buckminster Fuller said, Education is often the de-geniusing process. You take the genius out.
Brainwashing, huh?
And mind fogging. Mind fog.
That's
We
being
call
very
it mind fog.
gentle.
No, it's not very gentle. It's called the mainstream media is a brainwashing
Yes, yes,
machine
yes.
stuck on spin, and it may not be the gentle spin. There may actually be a lot of agitation. And so as we are trying to create our work of heart, we are living in, I would say, an obsolete and obsolethal civilization that is based on dominate or be dominated. Now, these are beliefs that many people don't even know that they have these beliefs, but they are so subconscious because we have been treated for millennia. It's been not the golden rule, but the rule of gold, which is do unto others before they can do unto you.
No.
Oh, that is the rule of gold?
I know,
And-
that's what's happening. That's
and-
why our country's in the state that it's in.
And there's a lot of residue. So here is our challenge.
Yeah.
Here is the challenge of love. Can we undo the doo-doo that has been done? Or will the done doo-doo be our undoing?
Well,
The challenge of love.
yes, and people need to wake up.
Well, that's why we have what is called the evolutionary upwising, where we wake up, wise up, grow up, and show up.
And wake up laughing.
That's right. We wake up laughing at what silly fools we've been.
Oh, I know.
Because we have the wherewithal
To
really,
change.
we have the wherewithal to have enough for everybody. What we
Yes.
need is the wherewithal.
That's the key.
We have to have the awareness
Absolutely.
that this is possible.
Wake up the unconscious.
Yes. Wake up to how we've been tricked
Yeah.
by the sociopathogens, tricking us into believing that their inhuman nature is our human nature.
Oh, please. It's so lethal. Ooh,
It's obsolete.
ooh.
Because it's outdated, you see. So the upwising, the great upwising, is people who are waking up and wising up to this. And unfortunately, in the last election that they had 2 years ago, I traveled around the country during the summer, and the question everybody was asking was, so who are you voting against?
Ooh.
There was the 60 Minutes show. The Sunday before the election, they had 25 prospective voters, and they asked them a question, well, across the political spectrum. How many of you will be voting for the candidate of your choice on Tuesday? 3 people raised their hand. How many of you will be voting against another candidate? 22 people.
Oh.
So this is the greater evil of voting for the lesser evil. Because one side can always see the evil in the other side, and each side is protecting its own evil because it's ours, and that is a moral failing. So we cannot have, instead of the lesser evils, we need to bring people together to focus on what is the greater good.
Right.
What is the greater good we want to create, and then we overgrow this two-party system,
Absolutely.
which is what we need.
I've been preaching that for years.
So wake up to
Yes.
how we've been separated.
Yes.
Wise up to the power of love to bring us together. Grow up from children of God to adults of good, and recognize what.
But keeping that little child inside of you so you can have fun.
Oh, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. It's very, very important
But
to have
it's
that.
to have it in the appropriate place.
Yes. Well, you're never too old to be immature, right? Yeah,
act immature.
Yeah. Well, we have a president who has proven not just that anybody can grow up to be president, but that you don't even have to grow up to be president. You know? We have that.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
We do. So
And you know what? I mean, you want to give him credit where credit is due. He is attracting the religious people. And in fact, he did this prayer and he said, "Get thee behind me, Satan." And Satan says, "I'm behind you all the way."
oh, yeah.
That's where we are.
Kick him in the-
We have to understand that.
I saw a little video from Sweden.
Yeah.
They had a huge mock-up of Trump with this big behind, and they were all coming and kicking it. I thought, oh my God, that's such a demonstration of unlove. But I mean, whoa, wake up.
Well, you know, there was a very famous conversation between two East Indian spiritual teachers, Gandhi and Sri Aurobindo. You've heard of Oroville? There's a place called Oroville.
it's
No,
north.
there really is a place
Yeah.
in India, Oroville.
Oh, okay.
And Sri Aurobindo was the great teacher. And so right at the onset of World War II, they were having a conversation, Gandhi and Aurobindo. And Gandhi says, we need to love Hitler. And Aurobindo says, yes, after he is dead. So I think that there is a certain aspect to what is, we need to have a discernment about what is life-giving and what is life-taking. And there's a reason why people have compared Trump to Hitler. Mm-hmm. And it has to do with the kind of energy that he attracts,
Right.
and the way that he manipulates people. So I'm not saying he's going to do what Hitler did. I'm saying that there is a similarity in vibration.
The energy.
And using that kind of energy to manipulate people. So, and to use that as a way to allow the thievery to continue and exploitation to continue.
So how,
behind all of
from,
this.
from Swami, how are we going to change this?
Well, the thing is,
One person at a time.
well, no, evolution wants the change to take place. Evolution says the next phase of human evolution is recognizing that we're all cells in the same body.
We're all one.
Yes.
I just saw a wonderful little live from India with the Dalai Lama. And, you know, he kept saying, we're all one, and we all need to recognize it, that we're all one.
Yeah.
That pure love.
Well, the human race will be one when we realize we're all one. And so this is why it's very, very important to keep weaving that community, weaving the community of love together and not be disheartened. Mm-hmm. And to rehearten ourselves through our connection and through laughter, which is what we said earlier.
Absolutely.
We would much rather be laughing together than crying separately.
Like you
would we
say,
not?
and like you talk about and have on all your shows and books, wake up laughing.
Wake up laughing.
Wake up.
And so the important thing is to wake up laughing, because what happens is when we have the laughter, when we wise up to the power of love, that is how we can metabolize all of the toxins
Yes.
that we need to metabolize. We need truth and reconciliation.
There. Ooh.
The truth shall upset you free. And it's very important that we
Yeah.
have truth and reconciliation.
Yeah.
To have that, we need to have the love container to hold it. If you look at the civil rights movement, they were successful because there was spirit. There was
Absolutely.
music, there was spirit, and that created the courage.
And that's love.
You know, I don't want to be in any more marches unless we're singing "When the Saints Go Marching In." That would be the only march that I would be part of.
Yeah.
Because the idea is you want people to join you. You don't want to repel people. You want to bring them along and say, we are on the go, we're on the love train, and this is where the love train is going. Rather than push against. I know resisting Donald Trump is irresistible, but rather than pushing against, what is it that we're for? What are we throwing in front of us that is so much more powerful and so much more positive?
In the long run, it is.
And, well,
Yes,
and I think we
yes.
need to, I think it's happening in the short run as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
It just has to keep growing.
And I think that we have to recognize
Expanding.
that the way that we've been doing it, you know, inside the political system, the way we've been trying to do it, it's a fixed game. That game is fixed. So we have to gather a critical mass of the heretofore uncritical masses outside the gates of the political system, outside the matrix, in an independent institution. And we declare our independence from the two political parties.
I know Bernie Sanders and Robert Reich are working on that.
Well, Bernie Sanders and Robert Reich are still inside
Yeah,
the
that's-
progressive, conservative, duality. I feel more comfortable with them. I don't think that they're going to put us in concentration camps, those guys. I feel more comfortable with them. And in order for this to really move forward, those people have to really tell the truth about what our empire has been doing for the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Because what happened is the awakening people on the Republican side who understand the deep state, they see, they look at who's in charge. Well, it's Obama. Obama was the head of the American empire for 8 years. And he did what he was told. And so when you see that, just as the other side saw George Bush in the same role for 8 years, none of the people who voted for Donald Trump are cheering for George Bush. They recognize George Bush and Hillary Clinton were more alike than unalike. That they were both actually promoting the same American empire, both sitting atop of it. One had a more pleasant way of doing it, but essentially same empire. Neoconservative, neoliberal, same thing. So in that case, in that sense, those people who voted for Donald Trump were more awake than the people who voted for Hillary, because they saw the perpetrations that the progressives were not willing to look at. Look at all of the drone bombings that went on for 8 years. Same policy that Bush had, perpetrated by Obama, a nicer face on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say, well, I certainly didn't vote for Donald Trump. I voted for Hillary, thinking that we'd have a better chance if we threw our weight in that direction.
I didn't.
But there you have it. People voted for different people. Had two terrible choices, and they chose one of them, or chose not to choose.
Or wrote it in.
That's right.
That's what I did.
I know a couple where he is a Republican and she is a Democrat. They went to the polling place. He voted for Gary Johnson, and she wrote in Bernie Sanders. But there it is.
Hey.
But because of the voting system that we have, well, if we overgrow
corrupt.
the system, if we have 70 million or 80 million or 100 million Americans gathering in one place outside the two-party system, saying we want election reform, and we have the power to pass a constitutional amendment to get it,
Yes. Well, let's
that
do
we're
it.
all unified
Let's
around
do
that.
it. We've
Well,
got to do it.
that's the great uprising. It is happening.
We've got to get it moving even more.
That's the great uprising.
My ancestor was one of the forefathers of this country.
There are only forefathers? Did you do a DNA test?
Charles Cotesworth Pinckney.
Oh, he had the pink. Well, your knees are a little pink too. You must be related.
Yeah, he started the first Bible Society in America, and he signed the Constitution.
I know the name from
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Yeah, that's right.
The Pinckneys.
That's my ancestor.
I'm more with the brown knees. We were more in the mud, but yeah, the Pinckneys
They
were.
still have the mansion, the Pinckney Mansion in
know,
Charleston.
I know.
And it's fenced, it's
Yes.
bombed and,
Yeah.
but it's fenced off. I've got to go there.
You
I
can
haven't
tell
gone-
that is an elite family that never kneels in the dirt because their knees are still pink. That's how we know.
But I've get in the dirt.
Okay.
I've gotten it in the dirt.
In the dirt. But you see, that's it. And so the founders of this country, what they recognized that was completely radical is that unlike any other government in Western civilization, they recognized that the power was not given from the king down, it rose from the ground
That's
up.
right.
That we have the
And
same.
that's what we have to take back.
That's right.
what you're talking about.
That's
is we
right.
have to do. We, the people, have to take it back.
And they established that it wasn't the king who was the sovereign of this country, but we the people.
We the people.
We need to speak in one coherent voice, and that is the purpose of the National
That's
Town
right.
Square.
Yes, amen to that. Woo!
You'll hear more about the National Town
Yes, absolutely. I want to get into it. I want to see what's going on there.
Square. You'll find out.
Good.
Okay.
Yes, amen.
Yeah.
So,
So good, I'm glad you get it, because this is what, in the old days there would be a revolution to overthrow the system. Now we need an evolution to overgrow.
yes.
Because human
Numbers.
consciousness has grown beyond.
Oh, way
And the
beyond.
people who are in power now have manipulated a small number of people. We call it the greedy, misleading the gullible, a small number of people, relatively small, and because of lying, cheating, and stealing, they have allowed themselves, they have taken power.
Yeah.
And they stay in power by making sure that the opponents can't vote and that the districts are fixed.
Corrupt.
Yeah, they're corrupt. But the only way to overgrow corruption is for both sides to recognize that we all benefit. We all benefit when we have a government we can trust.
Oh, that's an understatement.
It's an understatement. We need some we are the leaders we've been waiting for.
Yes.
So more than a new president, we need a new precedent. Government of the
Amen.
people, by the people,
Right.
for the
For the
people,
people.
where the government does our bidding and not the bidding of the highest bidder.
Absolutely. Ooh. Hello. Yay.
So that's the good news. That's the possibility that is happening if we animate it. I went to a fabulous conference called Unrig the System in New Orleans in February. They had many, I'd say a lot of young people there from
Like
all political spectrums.
Okay.
They had
Millennials or younger? All over?
millennials and
all across the board.
all across the board. They had Jennifer Lawrence, who is their spokesperson, and many people working to really connect beyond this two-party divide,
Yeah.
and recognizing that what we have now is very dangerous. That the Trump administration is very dangerous. And because there's no check or balance on its ruthlessness. In the past, in this country, there's been a check and balance on ruthlessness because people feel they can't be that ruthless to really get elected. They have to kind of hide what they're doing. He is boldly being ruthless and truthless. So the people who are not entranced by that, the people who have not drunk that Kool-Aid, that's not that cool, those people, and I would say when it all comes down to it, he will have about 30% of the population.
Well, actually, the polls that I saw, aside from the hacking and the stealing of the election, only 27% would have voted for him in the South and the Midwest.
Yeah, well, and of course, people who identify as Republicans, they're okay with him now because they're getting what they want.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and also they're getting they're getting the nod to the Christianist agenda that wouldn't,
Happy hypocrites?
Well, I mean, basically, it's a combination. How do you reconcile creationism and social Darwinism? That's what they have. They've been able to do that. And it's only to keep the patriarchy, which has been, which is now obsolete. What will replace the patriarchy is the equality where there's no need for bullying, where people are safe enough to not be bullied.
Absolutely. Oh.
And that's where we are. That's where we are.
Yes.
The people who've done the bullying now feel bold about it. They want to come out and
It's coming out all over the place.
It is.
Because of what's at the top. And it's all surfacing. And I look at this as a good thing, though, because it's all surfacing.
Well,
And it's also waking people up as this is surfacing because, the murders that are happening, the horrific, crimes that are happening today, every day it seems like. I don't even watch the news, but I know it's happening. And it's surfacing. So we have to surface it to be able to heal and unite together in love, with love.
Well, and that's why we need the love right now to be able to metabolize this stuff as it comes up,
That's right.
and to actually build a circle that's big enough to hold
That's,
the people that
yes.
we don't like,
Yeah.
so that they have an opportunity to recognize what it's like to be treated like a human, and then
Yeah.
out of that, 75% of people will be susceptible to love and respect. 75%.
I pray we can see that sooner than later.
Okay, well, that's the thing. We don't have any guarantees,
No.
but we know what our intention is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Any other wonderful words from Swami?
Well, you know,
Because we're almost ready to close.
do I have 2 minutes?
You have 2 minutes and 46 seconds.
Oh, well, okay, good. I can tell the story. Because I've been asked, will we make it? Will we be able to do it? And I always refer to something I heard, the most brilliant thing I've heard about predictions. And it was uttered by the great philosopher and center fielder Willie Mays. He was being interviewed by the sportscaster Howard Cosell, and I will channel it for you.
Ooh, this will
like
be
this.
fun.
We're talking with Willie Mays. Willie, let me ask you this. Are the Giants gonna win the pennant this year, Willie Mays? And Willie Mays said, I don't know, Howard. That's what we're gonna play the season to find out. So we are now gathered on a new playing field to play a new game.
Yeah.
And this is a field of dreams where we overgrow the field of nightmares we've been playing on. Hold that thought and hold that field. Namaste
Thank you.
and namaste go. Goodbye.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ah,
Okay.
I love it. I love it.
Winkle, winkle,
Thank you for watching. And thank you to my wonderful crew. Hello in there, Brad, Ginger, and Eric. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thanks to Marin TV. And if you like our show, please let us know on hashtag Marin TV and our Facebook page. Until the next time, bye-bye.
Hey, how's that bullwinkle hanging?
Wide open for all the love.
Wide open, Paul.